Hey everybody, I've got a really special video for you today because we are exploring one of the coolest new pieces of automotive tech in any new vehicle. We are checking out the steer-by-wire system in this Lexus RZ450e. This is a fully electric Lexus crossover, and one of the options that will be available in this vehicle is the steer-by-wire system, and we're going to try it out here in this really cool test course, and we'll let you know what it's like behind the wheel. Or can you call it a wheel? Now let's talk about this system. So obviously, it looks like something out of the Jetsons. You know, it's a wheel that's missing its top and its bottom. Now Lexus doesn't want to call it a yoke, but it is largely similar to a yoke that you'd find in like an aircraft or like an F1 car. And what's unusual about this system is it's fully steer-by-wire. There's no mechanical connection between the steering unit and the front wheels. None at all. There's no shaft. There's no set of linkages or gears. It's all done by computers and electronics. Now, the RZ450e is launching initially here in the US with a standard round wheel, a standard electric power steering setup with the rack and pinion, you know, that kind of thing. But this is not some weird science fiction thing which will be coming out in 5-10 years. This is coming very shortly. It's just late availability. I don't have an exact timeline of when. We don't know exactly how much it's going to cost, but yeah, it's coming very shortly, so we're going to see what it's like. This is not some prototype, right? Like, this is just a normal car. Anyways, let's get into the nitty-gritty on how the system works. So foot on the brake, we're going to start up this fully electric crossover, and it whirs into life. Now, Lexus didn't just change the actual wheel by going to the steer-by-wire system. The entire dashboard is different. The entire thing. Because it doesn't have a top portion of the wheel, they were able to lower the whole dashboard and improve visibility out the front, and that's a big commitment on their part to re-engineer the entire dashboard just for the steering mechanism. Now, the actual unit itself, of course, doesn't have a top, doesn't have a bottom. It is beautifully wrapped here in this premium material, and I'm noticing a lot of the controls are still where you'd expect them. So the turn signals, still on a stock, albeit a very small stock here on the left portion. We have wiper controls here on the right stock, and then there's a little toggle down here to control the speed of the auto wipers. The headlight controls are no longer on the left stock. There's also a little scroll wheel here to go between auto, headlights on, that kind of thing. And then steering wheel controls are still largely the same. So we have a little scroller here for volume. We've got touch sensitive controls to advance track, to cancel calls, that kind of thing. We still have the full Lexus safety system here on the right with the lane keep system, adaptive cruise, all that is the same. But let's talk about the difference between this and the other yoke on the market, the Tesla system in the Model S and the Model X. Now, Tesla, of course, did beat Lexus to the market, but their system works entirely different because what they did essentially is remove the round wheel and put on a yoke. They made some other changes too, right? Like they had to move the horn and the turn signals. Those are all buttons. But it's not a variable system. So what that means is that in the Tesla, if you make one turn of the yoke at 10 miles an hour, that's going to be the same turn that you could make at 60 in terms of actual steering input. In the Lexus, at slow speeds, a small turn is going to give you a lot more input than what you'd expect at high speeds. And that's because there's no physical connection at all between the wheel and the steer wheel. So they have a completely variable algorithm. At slow speeds, inputs are going to have a lot more impact on wheel movement than at high speeds. And it's supposed to really improve steering accuracy and be a whole new experience for this Lexus RZ. So we're going to give it a go. I'm in drive. I'm going to make my way out to the starting cones. Now, Lexus wanted us to come out here to a parking lot to experience it first because they said it's a pretty different experience than what you might expect in a standard vehicle. And I can tell you immediately, at 6 miles an hour, a very small amount of input is allowing me to maneuver around this parking lot as I would do with a traditional wheel, but with several turns. So you can see the slalom here is pretty tight, but a very small amount of turning of this yoke is actually causing me to maneuver around this with little difficulty. Now what we're going to do here is we're approaching a hard left and then a hard right, a 90-degree left and a 90-degree right. So typically I'd have to go hand over wheel in a conventional steering rack to make this turn, but let's see what happens in the Lexus. So I'm slowly moving. Okay, that is all I can turn it. So that is full lock to the left. Now let's try full lock to the right. And you can see my arms never fully cross over each other. So they do reach a point where they are on top of each other. Do you see that? But they never fully cross over. So you never are doing hand over hand. And that is typically one of the largest complaints with the Tesla Yoke, is that you have to do hand over hand, but when you go to grab the top of the wheel, there's nothing there. But not in the Lexus system. So we've got a full U-turn here. And you can see just a small turn of that yoke, and we have maneuvered that completely. Now I'm going to keep going nice and slow. I want to see if we can feel some of that variable speed difference. It is an unusual sensation. Now, one thing which I am a little concerned about from a mass market appeal of the system is I'm out here at the press drive of the RZ450e, and to experience the drive-by-wire system, Lexus has actually brought us to a separate location with cones because they didn't want us essentially crashing them right off the bat, because they said, yeah, it takes some time to get used to. Well, if, my mom or my grandma or someone that wasn't as big of a car enthusiast as I am were to hop into this, and they, just got into a Lexus dealer and they didn't have a full parking lot of cones, what's going to happen then? So Citroen with the SM back in the 70s, they had a much less sophisticated version, but a variable steering system, more or less. And one of the issues they had was on test drives. People had a tendency to run them into things because they didn't know what to expect. So now at higher speeds, I'm noticing that the amount of input I need to maneuver changes quite a bit. So at low speeds, right, turn it a little bit, the car turns a lot. At high speeds, turn it a little bit, the car doesn't turn as much. That's interesting. This is really pretty a wild system. I thought reading about this online and on news reports that it would be, just like driving any other car, but it does feel very different. It really is a dramatic difference. Now, one of the safety concerns I had is there's no backup between the actual steering input and the steering wheels. What's going to happen if there's an electrical failure? If the 12-volt system fails or if the high-voltage system fails. Well, the chief engineer told me there's an entire separate battery backup just for the steering module. So they've really looked into failures, right? If you're going down the road and there is a failure, the system runs on its own battery, and it's able to make sure that you are still able to steer the vehicle in the event of an emergency. Around the slalom, it really feels like you're piloting a vehicle in a video game. It's almost Xbox-like because your hands never end up on top of each other or beyond on top of each other. Now, from a comfort standpoint, right, you're cruising down the highway. A lot of people like to do this. What's this like? Well, hand here, you can rest your elbow there on the armrest. Hand here, I think it's pretty good. You can also potentially grab the bottom of the yoke. All right, we'll try it one more time. Speed up to 20, which is the speed limit. So you can see to navigate the slalom here. Feels like I need more input, which is probably good, or maybe it's just the speed variation impacting my brain. It's kind of hard to get your brain around that, 10 degrees of lock at 10 miles an hour is not going to be the same as 10 degrees of lock at 50 miles an hour or 70 miles an hour. Okay, going here. Yeah, that wasn't so smooth. You see, I kind of messed that up. I took that turn a little bit quicker than I was expecting, and I gave it too much input. And on a road, that could have been bad. All right, so making our way through the cones here, building a little bit more confidence now. Yeah, feeling really good about that. It's pretty cool. Now, I don't know how much more this is going to cost than a standard wheel. They haven't told us yet. But one more thing I want to try. I want to try a quick 3-pointed turn, and we'll move on to the next challenge. All right, so we are entering our crowded parking lot. It's not crowded, but simulation. I'm going to try parking in the parking spot that I typically might try to park in. And you can see I went full lock. The vehicle performed exactly as you'd expect. So we are parked. What about a reverse? Oh, we were not parked. I missed that line completely. That's embarrassing. Okay, reverse, full lock. Feels to be a pretty similar steering experience to what you might do with a round wheel, and off we go. All right, now we're going to try one of the most alarming parts of doing a maneuver in a Tesla, which is a 3-pointed turn. Let's try it in the Lexus. So 3-pointed turn. See if I can do it without taking my left hand off the wheel at all. I'm using my right hand to operate the shift mechanism. You can see, super easy, much easier than in the Tesla. What about a reversing maneuver? So I'm going to reverse into a spot. Maybe I can actually hit it within the lines this time, Micah. I keep wanting to go like that, but you don't have to. Just going to go full left. Missed it a little bit too. Man, you really got to reset your brain doing this. I think after a couple days, you could probably get it on the spot. Man, everyone's going to think, this kid's a terrible driver. And maybe so, but it's more just I'm trying to get my brain reset. The cool thing is you're not fussing with it. You know, that's the big issue with the Tesla, is it's fussy. This is not fussy. This is going to take some practice, but at no point is it fussy. There you go. You can see kind of we're just doing a quick full lock. And then what if I go full lock immediately the other way? Oh, there's some resistance. Interesting. So the actual system itself uses an electric motor to provide feedback to the I keep wanting to call it a wheel. So you can't just whip it back and forth at full speed like in a video game, because obviously the wheels can't move that fast. But the little computer and the little motor behind the wheel are actually in charge of providing some feedback. So you're not just it won't let you do that. All right, prepare for launch. We're about to take off with the Yoke into real public traffic. I do have to say it looks very cool, and I'm really excited to experience it in the real world. Now, in that kind of autocross they set up for us, it was definitely a little bit of a weird experience. You know, it took some recalibration of the brain, but what's it gonna feel like in real roads, in real traffic, in real life? Well, that's what we're about to experience now. So I'm gonna go right here. The turn signal stalk, by the way, the right turn signal stalk is pretty recessed behind this left portion. So you have to kind of reach back to grab it. It doesn't quite stick out beyond the yoke like you might experience from a wheel. But look at that, already at full lock behind this Border Patrol car. Don't want to rear end that. Now the first challenge here is we got to make a full U-turn and then accelerate up to about 50-55 onto this main road. So we're going to see what that experience is like. But so far, kind of liking it. Okay, here we go. Let's see if we can do it in the length of the road. Full lock. Can we clear this 2-lane road? No problem. Okay, so now we're going to start accelerating. There's 20 miles an hour, 30, 40 miles an hour there, and 50. And I'm going to attempt a lane change here, signaling left. So immediately at higher speeds, you can tell that there is a lot less sensitivity to the steering input. So here we're going to try another lane change into the right lane. Oh yeah, you know, I was really concerned. Oh, it doesn't have, does the turn signals auto cancel? I'll have to try that coming up on this turn here. It's got the turn signal style that returns to the center. It goes to the center detent, and then you can click it up or down. One click to turn it off. Yeah, down one click to turn it off. Here, I'm going to try to go right here. Let's see if the turn signal will auto cancel and how that system works. That's going to be interesting. So slowing down for this turn, right about 20 miles an hour, 15 miles an hour. Okay. It's about 90 degrees of yoke there. Yeah, it felt pretty good. This system would be so fun in like an autocross or a road course or a really tight autocross, especially where you have to do a lot of steering input because there's very little input you need to do. I mean, within the first 30 seconds here, my brain is almost completely recalibrated. Now let's try an emergency steering maneuver as if there was like an animal in the road. Yep, I mean, it doesn't feel like there's a delay. I was kind of worried that with no mechanical linkage, there'd be a delay between input and the actual vehicle making a steering movement, but if anything, it's faster than the mechanical system. What I'm finding interesting about the system is you might expect it to feel just completely dead because there's no connection between the wheel or the yoke here and the turning wheels, but it actually, like, you feel like imperfections transmitted through the yoke here, and I'm not sure if that's just making its way through the suspension into the cabin, or if that's actual, computerized input, but it doesn't feel lifeless. But what benefit does it provide over a standard steering wheel? I mean, more precise control, perhaps, less physical arm movement, but is that enough to make you want to buy the steer-by-wire system? It's actually heavier than the standard mechanical system because they have to incorporate that electric motor into the steering column and add a third battery to the car for the backup on the yoke. So it's difficult for me to really explain a tangible benefit of the steer-by-wire compared to a mechanical system. It looks fantastic, I'll definitely say that. And reliability-wise, it is still attached to a Lexus logo. So I think it's going to probably last a long time in the vehicle. But, yeah, I'm not really sure of the concrete benefits, to be honest with you. All right, accelerating up the highway speed. Try a really quick lane change if there was something in the road. Make sure we're in a safe position to do so. Lane change. Yep, didn't feel twitchy at all. Another quick lane change back to the left. Yep, doesn't feel twitchy at all. You can tell that the Lexus Yoke put a ton of work into this. Only thing I really dislike, canceling the turn signal is very sensitive. You have to really make a small movement on the little stalk to cancel it. If you push it even a little bit too hard, it'll just signal the other direction. But feels pretty normal, guys. It's pretty fun, actually. Now, there are still a couple unknowns about the Lexus steer-by-wire system. For example, the cost and the exact timing on when it's going to hit dealers. But overall, it was a really cool experience, and I can't wait to try it out in the real world on real roads. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. As always, been Tommy, behind the camera Ian. We'll see you in the next video.